Welcome to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast episode.
Everyone wants happiness and success, and we know how to get you there. Come listen to the Leadership Society of Arizona as we teach a proven logic to help you simplify life, overcome challenges, and predict the future. You're listening to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast. Welcome to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast. My name is Chuck Solanas, and I'm joined by our guest, none other than Dr. Jacob Kashiwagi.
Hi, Chuck.
Thank you so much for coming on this podcast yet again. We are very excited. I am personally very excited to ask you this question. And I'm very curious to see your opinion on this. So are you ready?
I'm always ready.
You're always ready, really?
Yes.
No sneak attacks?
Even when I'm not, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. All right. So the question is, does your understanding of natural laws and logic leave room for miracles? And if so, what would you consider a miracle?
So the answer is yes. In my logic and understanding, I've left room for miracles. Okay. And my definition of a miracle is basically something that occurs that nobody can explain. Now, a miracle, though, is something that occurs that no one can explain, but is qualified as a good thing. Okay. Like when a bad thing happens, that's not a miracle. That's like a
tragedy. Yeah.
But yes, so yes, my logic and understanding accepts that there could be miracles.
Okay, so we what I understand from C.S. Lewis's point of view on miracles is that miracles happen when something from outside of nature, a force from outside of nature comes in and monkeys with the event, and then that's how the miracle happens. What do you say to that?
Okay, well, that's kind of a different definition than what I was thinking is a miracle. But give me an example.
An example is, walking on water.
Okay, but that's not necessarily something coming from outside of nature or the environment or whatnot. See, for example, a miracle is something you can't explain. So someone walking on water you can't explain. That's why they call it a miracle. But they only can't explain it because they don't have enough information. So I saw someone walking on water just the other day on YouTube. But then this person showed me how he was walking on water. And I found out it was a miracle to me at one point, but once he explained it to me, it was no longer a miracle because I understood how it was happening. And of course, he had like these like clear, transparent boxes right underneath the surface of the water that no one could technically see, and he had all these swimmers around that it looked like they were like swimming underneath him, but they really were swimming through these boxes and whatnot, and you just couldn't tell. And you know, amazingly, that's how miracles usually are. It's not that there's not an explanation for them or there's not a reason they're happening that goes according to logic in nature, but it's just that we can't explain it. Right. So, for example, like if you were to have like an airplane back, you know, like in, I don't know, before airplanes were discovered, maybe, while people were still living in villages and huts and didn't have cars or automobiles or anything, if they saw an airplane, they'd be like, whoa, that's a miracle. Someone's flying, right? Someone's in the air. They might not even know what the term flying is. But once they figured out exactly how this person was in the air, right, like a bird, I mean, then it would be a miracle to them. Am I making sense here?
So your definition of a miracle is a magic act.
No, not a magic act. It's something that we can't explain, and that's why we call it a miracle.
Well, a magic act is like, someone swallows a sword, right? They put the whole thing down their throat, or they cut someone in half, and then you look at it, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. I don't know how that happened, but obviously the person that's doing it is just tricking you in some way. So you're saying it's really just a trick, is what you're saying a miracle is.
I wouldn't necessarily say someone's trying to trick you, but yeah, it's something that you just can't explain. Someone's doing something, but you don't know how they're doing it. That's what I call a miracle. It's like, for example, like back when they didn't know how to like fix broken arms or like a lot of these diseases that we can heal today. If you took a doctor with the understanding of today, took them back in time, this doctor might be healing a lot of people, and everyone around him might be thinking it's a miracle. But in reality, there's definitely an explanation for it, right? Yeah, it's a miracle because they can't explain it, but just because it's a miracle doesn't mean it doesn't follow natural laws and logic. Does that make sense?
Okay, so if you're saying it follows natural laws and logic, supposing that someone was able to heal someone that was blind, if someone was able to heal someone that's blind, they just understand what natural laws that they have to apply in order to heal them. Is that what you're
Yeah, I
saying?
mean, there's definitely a way that they're doing that. I might not be able to understand it, but you know, they have to be following some type of natural law or um, understanding of life, of people, of the body, whatever it might be. And for example, one of the things that I have, my family has a friend, a Chinese friend that lives in California. This person watches like every single different type of history, like related event and documentary and whatnot ever. And this friend is always sending us like these things on Egypt. Now, one of the unique things that happened in the history of Egypt is the 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 Hebrews or the Jewish people at one point lived in there in their history. And I guess they were called the Israelites back then. But they lived in Egypt, and this is a historical event. And there's, I guess, documentary on some of the miracles that happened in Egypt, which weren't really miracles because I mean, these are type of things where like the seed turned to blood, their river turned to blood, I guess locusts came, ate up all their crops. Basically, it just demolished Egypt. And one of these things was the firstborn of every Egyptian family died, I guess, for this last plague that had happened.
Yeah.
But this documentary goes through exactly how all of these different events occurred. And yeah, it's amazing, actually. There are certain reasons for everything. And this last plague, where all the Egyptian firstborns died, apparently, in the Egyptian culture, the firstborns would I think it was they slept on a bed that was lower than everybody else. And apparently there's like a volcano nearby or something had happened. And a lot of the I don't know, the acid or whatever, the gas that comes off of it was very prevalent at the time for that day or for that time frame. And Yeah, and that's probably what killed all of these firstborns, because they actually slept on bed a lot lower, and they probably inhaled a lot of this gas. So I thought, wow, that's kind of an interesting thing. But whether it's true or not, they give these explanations, and it begs to think a lot of these things that we didn't know was going on or that people have witnessed, there's probably an explanation for it. They just might not know what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does, and I think I've seen similar articles to that in the past, which explain all of the 10 plagues, are they 10? I think there's quite a few.
I think it's like
Of
7 or
Egypt,
something, but I don't know the exact number.
7. Yeah, yeah. No, they had a lot of bad things happen, but I mean, for someone to be able to know that all those things are going to happen and telling someone about that, that's kind of a miracle in itself, predicting the future.
That's true. It's just like someone predicting like which businesses are going to really flourish and where to put your money in the stock market before the stock market actually increases in value or whatnot. I mean, there are people who have a lot of information about different things, and you're right, it is a miracle that they know so much. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't follow natural law. They didn't, or the reason they were able to predict or know so much was because they saw something that nobody else did.
Got it. So you would say that any sort of revelation or any sort of like answers to prayer or whatever you call it, um, answers to meditation or what have you, would not necessarily be anything that you can't personally perceive. So it's something that you are able to perceive and able to understand, but maybe most people don't. And so, are you saying that the answers to prayer about the future or whatever circumstance happening is not necessarily a miracle or unexplainable? It's more like you know, um,
Well, I don't
because you can
know
some
why
see
things
it.
happen, but what I am saying is that there are many things in life that happen that we can't explain. And a lot of times we call these things miracles. And I'm perfectly fine with calling it a miracle. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't follow natural law and the logic and understanding that we know. It just means we don't know how it does it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And
So
so yeah, a lot of people, a lot of religious people, they look at different things and yeah, things happen. Amazing, like people who like are saved from their dying and they're dead and then they're not dead. I don't make decisions on these things. So someone tells me, "Hey, I saw this person. They weren't walking. Their legs were broken. Then the next minute they're walking." I'm not saying that that's not true because that would be a decision. But what I am saying is, if it is true, there's definitely a reason for it. We might not know it, but there's a reason for it. And I do believe that there's enough people witnessing different things like this happening that there are crazy things that go on in life. There are people who get these premonitions and knows things ahead of time. There are people who can do just crazy things, like maybe they're able to stick their hands in fire and not get their hand burned. Right? I've seen a YouTube video on that. I think on someone who just they have an abnormal ability to go through fire or whatnot and not get hurt or play with it or whatnot. All sorts of stuff. And these things, I believe, extraordinary things do happen in life. But if we had enough information, we could understand why certain people can do certain things, why certain people know what they know, why certain people get certain premonitions before things happen, why some people are getting, information other people. Does that make sense?
Um, yeah. Well, it's so you're not excluding the idea that a miracle can occur, or what we call a miracle can occur. You're just saying it's not. We don't really understand why it happened, and that's why it's called a miracle at the time. But if we understood all these laws in place, we'd know exactly how that man had broken legs and then was healed in the next moment. We would understand exactly how someone could have premonitions about the future. We could understand how someone was raised from the dead, or in some way. We would understand the laws associated with it. But because we don't, we call it a miracle because it doesn't it's not in the realm of science, or the understanding of science that we have currently.
It's more advanced than what we have, is basically what it is. So I definitely believe in miracles.
All right. Well, hey, Dr. Jacob, thank you for your perspective on that. I appreciate the time. And listeners, thank you for listening. And viewers, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Thank you for listening to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast. It would be great if you could take a moment to write us a review. For any questions, comments, or topics that you would like to have addressed on the show, email the team at leadaz.org. To learn more about the Leadership Society of Arizona, visit us at leadaz.org.